Alright everyone, so we've looked at a lot, haven't we already? We've gone into the data flows, we've gone into Excel, we've gone into Power BI Desktop and the Power BI service. How do we start to actually get to that whole model, bringing it into one and being able to really use it to get the most out of our data? Alright, welcome along. So, weekend work. What we've got is a point where we built a data flow last week, okay? And we were going to pull in all of the England stuff. Rather than us having to write an API, which I didn't really want to do in this series, I thought, well, I don't want to do an API because that can be a bit scary for people. What I wanted to do was show you this, where we've gone in and we've actually put it together where it's pulling them in batches. So the HTML table is batched, isn't it? By area. We can do the same and pull them all in like that and then use Power BI Desktop to combine them. We could combine them all in another data flow, but I thought we'll do it in Power BI Desktop, pull them together into a single table, put on our other dimensions that we need, like our calendar table. There was some other dimensions we're going to pull out of the data, weren't there? And actually really make a model out of this. But first off, right, I need to show you something that we had to put in. So I put in England deliberately thinking, well, it was going to cover an issue that I identified in the XML. So there is a fix that's supposed to be implemented by Microsoft. It doesn't seem to be fully in, or it's not fully running. I might log an issue with it. I'm not really sure. So I've had to actually find a fix for it. What it is the rating date. For some data sets it's coming through as a table, and for others it's coming through as just a date value. And that causes all sorts of problems. So what I've had to do was come up with a fix. I'm going to show you the fix first, and then I'll show you what we've done, and we'll do the last file that I've got to build, or the last data flow that we've got to do. We'll build that, we'll run the import, and then we'll pull it all together into a data model, and it'll all be brilliant, and we'll have a fantastic data set to show us the food hygiene ratings across the whole of England. And before you go too bad, why is he only doing England? Right? It's all to do with the way that the data is actually reported upon. So I'm not sure if, I've got a feeling it's England, Wales and Northern Ireland that are the same. Scotland I think is different. But I don't want to get into all that without me doing my homework. And I thought, well, I'm spending enough time building this stuff already. I don't want to be having to check and doing it all. England is a particular way of doing it, so it's like apples for apples kind of thing. But I thought, obviously, if this works, there's nothing to stop you going and saying, well, I've thrown in Northern Ireland, I've thrown in Wales, and I've thrown in Scotland as well, and here we go, here's our food hygiene ratings across everywhere. Okay, so I'll cut on over Power BI Desktop first, and I'll show you the issue, show you what we did to resolve it, and then we'll carry on. Champion. Alright, so here we are, over in Power BI Desktop. And if you remember, Power BI Desktop is where we have a sample file. So in this case, we've got this establishment details is the name of the sample file script that's written. Okay, and then that script is converted into a function. And in Power BI Desktop, it links the two. So if you change the script, it updates the function automatically, which is phenomenal. It's great. The problem is that if we scroll on over to here, okay, you see we've got a list of columns, or sorry, a list of text values for these dates. Right? If I loaded a different file, and the majority of the files are in the different format, that comes through as a table. And you will have seen in the earlier videos that we did where we had to expand the dates to get it out. Right? So that wouldn't work, because you can't expand text, because well, I can't treat it like a table. It's text, man. Don't be stupid, man. Give your head a shake. That's what it says. Right? Likewise, if you try and say to a table, I want you to be text, it can't give your head a shake, man. I'm a table. I'm not a column of numbers or text. So you're kind of at a bit of an impasse, aren't you? You've got to try and work out what they would do. Right? So I was looking into this and I was like, right, what can we do? How's the right way to go? And in my mind, right, my mind I was going like, right, stuff like this. So I had like this idea in my mind where it was like branching, we need to do this, we need to do this. Basically it comes down to an if statement really, isn't it? So it was how to get an if statement into here properly that was then going to rationally pull it together and then return a text value for something. Right. And what we actually came up with in the end was this one in establishment details too. Okay. So if we start off here, because you can see we've had to add a few steps to get it to work. The first one we've put in is this added a custom column. Okay. Now this is a bit advanced so if if you're not getting it, don't worry. Right. So if we come in here and we're focused on it, let's just do it the old-fashioned way. Okay. So we're starting with an add column statement. So we're going to add a new column. Right. And the new column is going to be based on what happened in the table, what was the table of data before, which is the result of the previous statement. Okay. So expand geocode, you can see here it's the one before it. So we're saying, based on the step before, what did you end up with? Right, that's what that means. And the new column we're going to add is going to be called tDate, temporary date. And then we're saying each. Now each means treat that table as it's like a for each loop. It's like a loop becomes. And what we're looking then is to say, if the value is table, right? If the value of it is a table, let's just get the first value. So the first row, or whatever the first value is, yeah? Just give me that one. Bang, that's all I want. Right? Otherwise, make it null. And this is when I was going, make it null. This was, honestly, for what it was, something that shouldn't take me that long. I think I was having a bad day. You make it null because you have to do these interim steps. And this was the bit that was making me think, I'm going to need a function for it. Okay. Once you've done that, right, I made sure it was text just because it needs to be text, and I replaced errors just in case there were errors, because sometimes you do get errors in it because not all your tables have data. So because it's a rating date, if the place is pending a new rating, or one's not there yet, they don't have a rating, they don't have a date, so that table is blank, and that causes an error. So we replaced the errors with nulls, and then we've added a conditional column. So what we're saying is this date of rating table, which becomes our new rating date of rating, if the tDate, so that the one that we've got in is null, so if it didn't come from a table, take the value from the rating date. Right? And you're going to go, well, hang on, this isn't right, this isn't going to work. It works fine, because what you end up with is nulls, where you're supposed to have nulls, and you end up with the values that were text having text. So if it's null, and it's null because it was a table, it's null. Okay, this works, right? And then we remove the other two columns. So I've now built a source for a function. The next thing I did was I literally just went in the advanced editor, copied it all, and pasted it into the function that existed in my Dataflow. Okay, and that worked fine. I was like, it's brilliant, great job. So that's that, done, dusted, dealt with. If we cut on our Dataflows now, what you'll see is I've got 8 of them. Okay, and don't forget, we've got the SharePoint based one, which was just the sample one we did first, as a kind of, look, we're going to take what we did before, do this. Okay, all of these are in, all of these are scheduled, they're all able to run. It works. So I've just set them up running half hour apart or so, and it just kind of trickles through, and the data will be in come 9 AM when I need to be in and see what's happening. So I think this works pretty well. But I've got one area that we haven't covered yet. Okay, so there's one more file that needs to be done, so that I show you how they're done. So if we go over to here, okay, and I apologize, whoa, JSON, whoa. Okay, what you can do with a Dataflow is once you've built one, you can come on over to it, you can click on the 3 dots, and you can export the JSON file. So that's what I did. We built one, exported the JSON file, and then I thought, right, how do I go in and understand what the issue is? or which files I need to use. Okay. Now if we went into one of these, and we can do that, that's not a problem. It might be easier. Let's go into the East Counties one, just because it was at the top. Okay, click to edit it. If you remember, there's a step here where we extract the table from HTML. Now that has these numbers in it. Okay, that's the reference on the page, the HTML page, for the table of information that you need. Okay, so the limitation of this whole method and this whole strategy is going to be based on that they're not going to redesign their web page anytime soon, which they probably aren't. It's a data page, I doubt they will. But yeah, it's one of those things they would need to keep a track on for the updated things. Now I've gone through already and got the HTML values that I need, and that's where we use to build all of these things. So the next step that I need to do is to edit it, isn't it? So if we close this and we go back to our HTML or XML file, right, you can see here, if we zoom in here, you can see I've got these numbers, right? These are 42. Okay, this is for still a Northeast one, or West Midlands one, sorry. Okay, this is one I changed earlier as we were going through. Okay, as part of the validation. So what I need to do is I want to make this the Yorkshire and West Midlands one. Okay, so that means what I need is to replace all these 42s, okay, there's 4 of them, okay, with the correct one. So if I go Control F, so pick the thing, Control F, there we go, and replace that with the right one, which is 44, and then replace all. That's done that. And then the last thing to do, just so that it doesn't all come through with the same thing, is to change a few key points. So as this was one of the earlier ones, I know this, I thought this was a better one to use, but it'll do. Okay, so let's pick that there. We can see we've got this here, needs to be changed. See, we've got this here, it needs to be changed. So there's 4 locations for that, and then there's one more right down at the bottom here. There we go. Okay, and then we'll go File, Save As, give it a name. Okay, there we go. Right, so I've now done that. I've built my updated Yorkshire one. So how do I bring that in? If we go back to Power BI Service and click New, Dataflow, import a model, downloads where it is. Let's pick the Yorkshire one. Okay, so it's now imported. So now all we need to do is through here, let's run a refresh on it so it can start to refresh it. Let's go and schedule a refresh. I'll tell you what, let's make this one daily at 7 AM. So we'll just pick in 7:00 and then AM and apply. And hopefully by the time we come back to the home, it's nearly finished. So that's built. I've got all the data for the UK coming through. It's all going to run through, refresh, everything's done. Okay. The next thing to do is, of course, to actually start to bring this into Power BI Desktop. So how do we do that? What's actually required to bring this into Power BI Desktop? So when we're opening up Power BI Desktop, we get into the idea that we can actually do a merge or an append. Sorry, it's an append. It's the correct term for this. So let's go in here. So I've got my Power BI Desktop. So if I go to Get Data from Power BI Data Flows, okay, it will open up. Now in this case we're treating the data flow as just a source of a table, so one table per data flow. You can put multiple tables into a data flow, and that's generally what you would do. The key to remember is that the data flow will have a single refresh cycle. So for this, where we're trying to minimize the impact on the web servers, it wouldn't make sense to do that. So we've got them all separately. Okay, so what we would need to do is go into each of these, expand all these through, and then tick the boxes for the ones that we want, which is all of them. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to bring through from the data core. And those of you who've been with the channel for a while will know data core is something that I recommend that you set something like this up. I'm going to bring in my calendar. Okay, and then I'm just going to hit transform the data. So that's now going to bring all those bits of information through into my table. So I've got a calendar going from 1900 to 2050, or sorry, to 2100. Right. What I will do is I'll filter that, just because I think we don't need it to be quite as big. So we're going to make this be between 2000 and we'll say what? 2025. Okay, so we've just limited the calendar slightly. So we've got all our areas in here now. So if I select them all, I'm going to move these to a group just to make it easier for this. Okay, and again, this is something I do. You don't need to do this, and call this regions. And what we're going to do, or the plan is that we're going to effectively unload all the regions. So we're going to go through. Next, over here, you've got this append queries. If you left click on it, you can see you can append queries as new. So we're going to do that, and we're going to say it's 3 or more tables, and we want to just pick all of them and add them. Click OK. So we've now got all. I'm just going to call this all T, all temp. All right, and I'm doing that for a very particular reason, because what I want to do again with this is unload it. Why is he unloading everything? Okay. This is going to be the source for me to start with, right? Because there are 2 tables of data at least in these, right? So I thought, well, let's do this, and then we can build the table stacks that we need, right? So first one, so we're going to right click on it, zoom in, right click, and down to reference. Okay, so everything's going to become a reference from, and we're going to rename this types. Okay. And types is because what we have is business type ID and business type. So type ID is a whole number, and that's fine. We can do that. That's one of the things we found. So if we pick those 2 and then choose to remove the other columns, and we just have those 2, and we then choose to remove duplicates, we end up with this is a distinct list of types of businesses that we have, okay? Because we might want to know, well, what's happening, where are they, what's going on. So this is a nice thing that we can do. Okay, so we've got types built now. Back to the all temp. Again, let's right click on it, let's reference it, bring that through down to here, rename it, and this is going to be authorities. So if we scroll along to the right, what you find we have is we've got a local authority code, and again, that should be whole number. Then we've got all the information about the authority, so their website, their name, that kind of thing, email address. Duplicate data, really, if we're putting it in for everything. So what we'll do is we're going to strip it out. So we've highlighted those 4 areas, those 4 columns. We're going to right click again, remove the other columns, and then under the local authority code, we're just going to right click, and that's going to give us a nice distinct list of authorities. So now if we come back here, we go in here, and we reference it again, we can now do, so what we can do now is we can get rid of, is we can obviously pick the types that we've got, the 2 types. Let's make those both whole numbers so that the joins will work properly. And then what we can start to do is actually go through and remove the rest of the things that we're not going to need. So we've got the business type. So we scroll further over, we find we've got local authority name, website, and that. And if we right click and remove those columns, so that's all going to help make this more efficient. Okay. One of the things to then do is just go through and make sure that you've got the right date value. So all we need to do now is hit close and apply. Okay. Now at this point, Power BI Desktop is going to the Power BI service to import all the data that we've pulled in for this food hygiene ratings. Okay. So everything will all come through. It's not a case of it's waiting for anything from anywhere else. It's just going to be waiting for that. So it's going to download it. It'll all come in. Okay. And what we should find is that we end up with a nice, reasonably trim data set. I mean, that was, did I see that? 500,000 rows. That's not too bad, is it? What we can do here is we can see that the joins have been identified already. So because the column names are the same, it's identified that those two are the same, that those joins are there. Now those are correct. Okay, there's a way of doing it. I've never found a way that I'm really satisfied with. One thing I will say to you when you're doing these kind of data models is don't be afraid to use different views, right? In my experience, as you get bigger with this and as your files get bigger, different views make it easier, right? So for this, we've got 4 tables for now. That's fine. Right. The last thing I'm going to do is just to make sure that we highlight calendar, and we need to make sure this is marked as the date table. Right click on it, mark it as the date table. The column is dates. Okay. And then date of rating is joined to dates. Okay. So this method that I'm using here to display this is one I've seen a lot, and as I say, it works to a certain point. But yeah, because you can't control where the lines go per se, just like, is kind of put the dimensions on the top, facts on the bottom. What I tend to do is, you've got the all tables view, don't edit that too much, okay? But you can create a new view, and this might just be, just for the sake of this, authorities. And into authorities, we might decide that we're just going to bring the authorities and the food hygiene ratings, and you'll see it shows you the join between those two. If we were to delete it from here, it deletes it from the model, so it would delete it from everywhere else. So if you've got small sections, you can bring those in, put the joins in. Where things get really complicated, so especially around calendars to dates, where you might have, if you're thinking the sales pipeline, you could have 5, 6, 7, 8 dates in there. That can make that really difficult to see. So you might want to avoid putting the calendar on your main view for your sales pipeline, and then have that in the all, or have the sales pipeline dates and just have the calendar and the sales pipeline, whereas in every other view you didn't have the calendar. For example, it all is about how can I quickly and easily come back and look at this, and the important thing is, in 6 months' time, when I've forgotten what I did, how can I come back and review? And you might not have the luxury that I have of videos, so you might do. So we've got this written now, this is built. Okay. The last thing, if you remember, was we went in and we decided to just mark some things as particular types of data. Sorry, types of data. So over here, latitude and longitude, we mark these as latitude and longitude. So longitude, latitude. Okay. And then once again, we would come over here. We could pick our latitude and longitude. And we can see it's going to go. I'm not showing 500,000 rows or items of data. Oh, I've got one up there. Interesting. Okay. And we could put the rating value in as the legend again. Okay? So this is going to work very well for us. What we should do is let's filter out. There we go. Okay? So we've got rid of the ones that haven't got ratings, which gives us a nice, simple view. He says, and we can zoom in and we can then see in any particular area what's happened. And we could look and we'd build up and expand this so that we actually had a better tooltips view, so that we actually have some better things. And what I'll do is I'll go away and I'll do that, and then we can... Alright, so I've been busy, haven't I? Right? Ta-da! I've built this. Okay? It's an alpha at best, if I'm being honest with myself, right? I could do a lot better. You know, could probably do a lot worse, being fair. But it covers everything that you can think of here. I've got the regions here, so we can start with regions. We can say where I just want to look at the northeast, because this is where we're all started, isn't it? Looking at the northeast, and we can then zoom in and actually see across the northeast everywhere. But that might be difficult, so we can then further filter it. We could pick a region, or we could pick a particular type of business that we're wanting to see. So how about farmers and growers, because there don't seem to be many of them. So let's pick them. And we can see these aren't going to be on the map for some reason. So they're just not plotted, which would be a bit of a problem. Pick retailers, so and that'll then filter it down so we can see the retailers. And as we zoom in, we can look in at Morpeth or Newcastle, and we can see, there's a retailer. Marks and Spencer's, right? 5 stars. Last rated on the 20th of May. So it's a good one, isn't it? You know, this works, right? It's a good starting point. I mean, I would definitely look to expand the card some more. I think there's more to be done with the card. One of the things I did as well, or that I found really useful actually, was I put in a key influencers. So we can actually look here and see, well, what goes into making places like, say, a 3. So what's the key influence that would make something a 3? And it seems to be that management is generally just satisfactory. So it's generally satisfactory. It's interesting, but that's again one of those chicken egg things. You know, is it that 3 because of that, or is that how does that become satisfactory as opposed to anything else? Is the question, I guess. What we can see from the way it's broken down, though, is that there's a clear satisfactory is what's getting them there. We've got the structural. Again, it's satisfactory. So overall, we can see these things are, if you're satisfactory across the board or in these areas, you're only going to get a 3. You can also see through the way from the way the key influences works, that we get other areas as well. So in terms of actually, is there a region that's most likely, or a particular type? And we can see it's sandwich shops. Seem to be, there's quite a high number of sandwich shops and takeaways that are going to be 3s. It's telling. But we can suddenly take what was a static XML file, and let's not forget where we began this whole journey, where we had one XML file, maybe 2, I think it was 4 actually, wasn't it, that we had the 4 around Newcastle. And suddenly we're here with 311 local authorities. So we've got huge numbers that we've suddenly gone from that, like starting at 4, and really now I can just leave this up in the cloud and it's going to refresh every day. It's going to be accurate, it's going to be up to date. If something goes wrong, because of the way I've broken it down by regions, it's not going to completely blow the whole thing up. It might blow up a region, and then I need to go in and look at the region's import and see what's happening, and look at the probably be one XML file that's a bit off. It's not going to be too bad. It's changed everything that I can do, though, from here. So what do you reckon, then? Are you going to come, when we do our courses up in Newcastle, going to come, we can use this, find a nice place to go and get some bait. I'm sure there'll be a nice pub near the office. It'll be good. It's not going to be long now before we're able to get back out and find out, go out and actually eat and see if this works. What I'm going to do as well, the JSON files for the data flows, I'll make them available on geordieintelligence.co.uk. Be under the members area for those. But honestly, if you watch the videos, you'll be able to do it yourselves, man. Right. The other thing, I'm going to publish this up and try and make sure I'm going to do it available free. So you'll be able to come in and have a look and do it. And I just need to jigger around and work out the right things. Probably drop it all down to Pro. I think it's probably the way I've got to do it. And then you'll be able to access that through just a link. And that'll be refreshing. So if you want to be able to see what's going on with particular places, off you go. For now though, stay safe, take care of yourselves,